So good afternoon and welcome to the May meeting of Minnesota MUFON. Welcome to our people joining us here live in New Brighton, Minnesota, and to our viewers watching us around the world. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tom Maher. I'm the Minnesota MUFON State Director. Today is a very special meeting. And Mike, I'm looking at you because I need you to remind, it's too early for me to start crying, right? So Mike, just remind me it's too early for me to start crying. So you too? Okay. So today is a very special meeting. Today we're celebrating the life and contributions of Craig Lang. And I chose the word celebration very intentionally. Craig's was a life to be celebrated. Many cultures around the world celebrate differently. Some of them go through a grieving and mourning process. Some of them sing and dance. I promise you I'm not going to threaten you with singing and dancing tonight. We won't do any of that. Maybe at Sarna's afterwards, if you want to have a few cocktails and sing and dance, you're more than welcome to do it. But this will not be singing and dancing. But in our celebration, we want to welcome all emotions. We welcome your joy, and we welcome your tears. So today is a day to celebrate. So let's let the celebration begin. I'm going to go over briefly what our agenda is going to be. We're going to have some VIP presenters talking about Craig over Skype. And then we've got some VIP people that are here that will be speaking live. And then we've had some people that can't be here on Skype that wanted to speak on Craig's behalf who've emailed us comments they want to make. So we'll read some of those. Then we've got people here, too, that would also like to talk about their experiences and memories with Craig. And first up is Erica Lukes to kick things off. She'll be joining us over Skype. Erica is an artist, a singer, a talk show personality, an experiencer, former Utah MUFON State Director, and an expert in Utah's high strangeness. She's known Craig for about 5 years, and it is through that relationship Craig got her to fly into Minnesota and present to our group in August of 2017. This presentation can be seen on our YouTube channel, and it already has over 1,000 views. And you may recognize Erica from like Ancient Aliens or some of those other shows because she's on there quite a bit. So welcome, Erica. We're glad you could join us. And
thank you. I am just honored to see you and to have this opportunity to talk about somebody who left such a profound impact on my life. And meeting all of you, I want to say that you guys are the coolest MUFON chapter I have ever seen. And for all of you new people there, just be grateful that you have incredible people like Tom and everybody in the CTV crew. I mean, you guys rock. And I think Craig would be so proud of all of you. I met Craig at a MUFON symposium, and it was my first symposium. I was the new kid on the block, and I was wide-eyed and overwhelmed, and he could see that. And so he immediately came over to me and introduced himself, and he made sure that I always had a seat next to him so I could sit by him and be comfortable. And we would meet and we would talk. And the second I met him, I knew that he was going to be a friend of mine for the rest of my life. And I know now that will even be after. He had a personality that was daring. He was centered within himself, and he knew that he was different, and he embraced his nerdness just like I do. I loved it. I love that about him. He didn't ever want people to feel alone or afraid about the experiences that they had. And I love that about him, because no matter what you can say about people in this field, he was truly, genuinely supportive and wanted to protect everyone. And he was proud of people. I developed, after that first symposium, I developed a friendship with him. And we spent many occasions talking on the phone. And as I was going through my own struggles trying to find my footing in the field, he was immensely supportive and gave me ideas. And I loved him for that, because he didn't care if I'm in or out of MUFON. He supported me, and he wanted to do the right thing. And you, all of you do, we're all in this together. I had the privilege last year of meeting Craig at ECETI Ranch. And I would be willing to bet that all of you guys heard the stories about ECETI Ranch. We met there, and We got all of our gear. Every night we would set up everything and just look at the beautiful mountain, talk to people. And we had this running joke. He would say, and it was, I've got it on video, so I'll have to share this on Facebook, but we would see the lights on the mountain and above the ridge line and things. And on one occasion he yelled, "Oh, those climbers again, they're out tonight." And there was, I think, an audible gasp from everybody there. And they didn't understand his really dry, fantastic sense of humor. But I did, and I think I about fell off my chair. And so I had a couple other people come up to me. "Oh, is he a debunker? Is he a debunker?" I'm like, "No, he just has a really great sense of humor." So we watched, we videotaped, we spent time every day going to lunch, talking about the field. I had wonderful, candid conversations with him, and he again told me how important people were experiencers, people who have been faced with sometimes traumatic, oftentimes life-changing events. And at the end of the day, he didn't know what this was, but he knew that this was something that was worthy of very serious scientific study. And I love that. He did, on one of the last nights, he would stay up late every night and just go walking around the fields. And of course, being Grandma Moses, I was in bed, but he had the luxury, he actually saw one of these amber orange spheres. And he said at first it was kind of hovering right next to the trees, and then it just lifted up and shot off. And he was so tickled, and he's like, "I can't believe it, I can't believe it. I finally, I saw one of these things up close and personal." And so I was just like, yes, because it's what we all want. He was also there, we were all there together when the garage door was discovered. And we, of course, piled in a car, and we got up there, and he hiked as close as he could to this, and we figured out it was a mundane object, but we went on the best adventure and had a great time and put things, just like Craig would do, through the logical paces. Okay, this is an object, it's a mundane object, this is extraordinary. And he was a very critical thinker, which for all of you who are coming into this field, we're faced with a lot of high strangeness, but we also have to step back and look at things critically, and he understood the importance of that. When I got the news, when I read Kathleen Martin's Facebook post about his passing, I was at work, and it was really, really difficult for me to make it through teaching the rest of my workload. I spent a week in tears because I just couldn't believe that somebody that I loved and cared for so much had left this earth way too soon. And I ended up, because I just needed to come to grips with his passing. And so I printed out a picture of him in ECETI, and I looked at it and I prayed, and I had just a moment of really beautiful clarity when I could feel his presence, like his presence was when he was alive, just this warm blanket wrapping around you. And it was really very special for me. And I want all of you to know that you have a beautiful man with a very profound legacy that you are going to carry on. And I want you to know that when I think of all that you have all done to carry on Craig's work, to remember him, it makes me extremely proud that I am friends with all of you. You will always be in my heart. And I hope I get to come out and see you again. And I'm always here. If you need anything, let's chat. I'm here for you. And welcome new people. Like I said, you have a wonderful, wonderful group of people there that you can explore and learn about life. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you talked about his critical thinking, because one thing that I found in the ufology or outside of ufology is there's those UFO they call themselves skeptics. And when I talk to those quote-unquote skeptics, their minds are so closed, and you hear what they say, and they're truly not skeptics. They're actually cynics, but they embrace that word skeptics. And to me, a skeptic is open-minded and does that critical thinking and does that research and is open to possibilities. So Craig was a true skeptic in the best sense of the word, where those others, I believe, are truly cynics. So I admire and aspire to the Craig quality of his healthy skepticism toward the subject.
And you know, I mean, we talked about that because as people that are coming forward, especially in a public sense and trying to make change, it can be very hard on your psyche sometimes to have to endure that constant bashing. But he knew with every ounce of his being that this was something that was truly worthy of that, and he was going to hold steadfast to that mission. And that takes a really special person to do that and to go up against the cynics and the debunkers. And he did that with grace, and he's an example.
Yep, definitely. Cool. So any last thoughts you want to share on Craig or your experiences with him?
I will post some videos on Facebook, and so you can hear his laughter, so you can hear our grand adventure at ESETI. And just, I know in my heart that he is with all of you. And I know that you are all wonderful people. And I am so thrilled that Craig brought all of us together. And that is a blessing.
Thank you. And of course, the welcome mat is always out for you here at Minnesota MUFON. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Now, I had mentioned that you've probably seen Erica Lukes on some UFO shows on television. Well, our next speaker, you probably haven't seen on any UFO shows unless you were from Italia or South America or Australia, because she's all over the TV down there, but you don't see her too much here. But she has come to Minnesota MUFON a couple times, and she has a fantastic conference that she has down, which we'll tell you about a bit. We'll be hearing from Paula Harris, and Paula is an international photojournalist. She's an investigative reporter, author, experiencer, and the executive producer of the popular Starworks USA conference. Among her broad expertise, she specializes in the higher consciousness aspects of the ET phenomenon and has had personal relationships with Dr. J. Allen Hynek and Colonel Philip Corso. She has presented to our group on multiple occasions, of which her presentations are also on our YouTube channel. So welcome back, Paula. It is great to see you again and great to have you here. Uh-oh, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you all? I really am very, very touched by Erica, though. My goodness, Erica, you know how to really paint a beautiful picture of Craig. I didn't know him that long, but I got emotional listening to you because he really does deserve this accolade, and it's so personal. And Tom, you're
Yes.
an amazing announcer.
Oh, thank you.
My goodness. I've said this before. You know how to be real relaxed behind the podium, and you can come and work for me anytime.
Paula, this isn't about me today. So.
No, I know that, but you have a very good communication skill,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for modern technology to be able to present us to everybody. Because if we didn't have modern technology, and if we didn't have the CTV crew, Tom Woods and the gang, and bonjour, Bob, comment ça va in France. Paris is one of my favorite places. I spoke in France, in Paris, downtown, about Colonel Corso. But anyway, I want to also say one last thing before I talk about Craig, and that is I'm so glad you had Erica. And do you notice that there's two women that are talking about Craig, and that we women need to stick together because there's so few women in the field, and I tried very hard by modeling that behavior by having in Laughlin 8 men and 8 women, and sometimes I have to bring them in from other countries, like I did this year, like I'm going to this year from Barcelona, Spain, and from England and so forth. But it's very important. So let me say that, and thank you for everything.
And I'd like to add, yes, few women, but also very high quality women, may I add.
Oh, thank you. Well, we try, and we love the subject matter as much as everybody. And I was very lucky to have worked with Alan Hynek, and that opened the doors for me, because working with a scientist astronomer, you know, this is real. This is not a joke. It's not entertainment. It's very serious research. But I want to also thank Minnesota MUFON, like Erica did, because I love you guys. You are so wonderful. And I got to go to the America Mall, and I got to do a lot of things when I came, and I got to sit next to Craig. And I will begin by talking about Craig, because he was sitting next to me, and we had many discussions about experiencers. In fact, at one point, he even told me he was thinking of writing a book. And I really wanted to encourage that in people, because he had many, many cases, and he talked to me about them. I was sitting at dinner with him, and I said, Craig, what you might like to do is come to Laughlin, because we have now contactees from South America. We had Ricardo Gonzalez, we had Luis Fernando, and you might want to meet and see what people from other parts of the world think. And he was very open. So he was with us last year in Laughlin, and he was at the experiencer section with Gwen Farrell. He'd go in at 8 o'clock every morning and be with her in there with all the experiencers, because we have that. And he'd come out and say, you know, I really want to do that someday. And I said, I'd love to have you, because I really love the approach you have. You have to have a very unique approach to talk about this with experiencers. You have to have an empathetic approach. You have to have you have to be a good listener. And, you know, Craig Lang was a sweet man. He just was a sweet guy. Everybody loved him. Last year at the conference, he always had a smile on his face. I never saw him sad. I never saw him angry. His life changed a great deal, but he was always with a smile on his face, and always very, very optimistic. So when I heard about his passing, and I was keeping in touch with the people in Phoenix, I heard about it. I like Erica, was devastated. I just couldn't believe it. It's unbelievable, because I can see him now in my mind's eye. He's very much alive in my mind's eye. And because there's that smile, you know. So I thought, what can I do? And this is the part, Tom, I need you and Minnesota MUFON to help me with. Okay. First of all, let me say that Jeanne Harzan is speaking at my conference this year, and I have a MUFON representative every year. And I really do herald the data collecting that MUFON does, because it's the only show in town that does this kind of data collecting. It's important. I do the other part. I do the consciousness and the nitty gritty stuff. I'm on my way to Europe now to cover 2 cases in Italy. I do that part, but we need the data collecting. And I want to say that Craig loved the conference so much last year that he signed up for this year. So I thought, my God, what am I going to do here? So what I'd like to offer Minnesota MUFON, and I think we've talked about this, I know Tom Woods has mentioned it to you, is offer a scholarship to Laughlin Conference in the name of Craig. And of course, we're going to do a memorial on the stage. And I don't know how you want to do it, but it is a full attendance package of 18 speakers, 3 days, 2 films, a cocktail party, and a formal dinner. So I don't know how you want to do it, but I want to do this as a scholarship every year for Minnesota MUFON in the name of Craig Lang. And that'll kind of keep him alive, his name alive, because he was such an important part of us.
And I'm getting a question. What is the date of that event?
Okay, the conference this year, it used to be 11/11, but now they want it to be Veterans Day, so they want the Marine Ball at the Aquarius. So I had to change it to the 2nd to the 4th. So it's November 2nd to November 4th. And of course, I have on Facebook that is very affordable. The rooms are $49 a night and $59 on the weekends. I mean, that's unheard of because usually other hotels and other conferences, the rooms are over $100 and you just pay so much to sleep. But for the Aquarius, it's very affordable. And what we will give you is the free entry, the free dinners, the whole 18 speakers, the 3 days. And I really encourage people to sign up now if you're coming, because our early bird finishes June 1st. And there's a reason for that. Even though it's in November, I have to pay 5 international airline tickets. So and to bring in people like Ricardo Gonzalez from Argentina and Steve Mera from the UK Paranormal Magazine, it's hard. So the thing is that what I like to say, however you do it is fine with me. But as long as I produce that conference, there will be a Craig Lang scholarship.
That's great. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. So they did give me some preloaded, some pre-questions to ask you, and they're all very innocent questions, but the first one, knowing Craig, it actually sounds a little bit loaded, but I'm going to throw it at you anyways. So how did knowing Craig Lang change your life, Paula?
Well, my work has always been nuts and bolts. All my books are military people or intelligence people, and I didn't do a whole bunch of work with the experiencers. And the reason why is because I'm not really good at it. I'm not very good at at deciding about the stories and so forth. So Craig and I would have these long conversations about experiences and cases that he had. And so knowing the way he expressed himself, he was so logical and he was so grounded, changed my life about looking into the contactee experiences.
Yeah. And actually, this wasn't planned, but since we have both of you pulled up, I'm going to pass it back to Erica. Same question. How has knowing Craig changed your life? Put you on the spot?
He has changed my life in so many ways. And I think one of the biggest ways is that he taught me to really be strong. And that's to really stick to your guns, to be secure in your knowledge base and to be secure in your path. And for somebody, like I mentioned, that is brave enough to look at experiencers and to help support them, I mean, that says a lot, because that is the toughest field, in my opinion, the toughest area of study in ufology, in this subject. So he really taught me to be strong, to be grounded, and to just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to throw it back to Paula. Any last thoughts before we move on, Paula?
Well, since he opened that door, I'm doing a lot more in that area. And I really, I'm a reader. I'm a great reader. I always talk about reading. So I'm doing a lot more reading in that area. I also want to add one more thing. And this hasn't been announced yet formally, but what I've done, because I live in Boulder, I live next door to Gaia, and I knew him from Stephen Greer's film Sirius, is I have invited Emery Smith to Laughlin this year, which is a brand new, I haven't put it out there yet. He really wants to come and talk about not only his work with the biomedical work he did in the secret projects, but he also has some very deep thoughts about what's going on with contact. So I just want to say, lastly, please, you people in MUFON, stay together. And I'm so happy that you're meeting and you have new people. Just as Erica said, it's very, very important to be with like-minded people. Try to not get all your information from internet. Try and meet people and read the first-hand source material, because it brings a lot more to your study. And also, like Erica, I love you guys. You are the nicest group of people. I've been there twice, and it's just like being in a cosmic family. So whenever I get a chance, I'll come back and share my research with you also. And also know that Craig, this year, we're doing a special memorial to him. And I hope that you'll let me know who the wonderful, recipient of the scholarship is soon, so we can also put it in our newsletter.
Cool. Yes, we'll do that. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I want to thank both of you, and of course invite you to stay for the rest of the meeting if you can. We'd love to have you sit in and listen and watch. But we're going to move to our next portion of the meeting. Our next portion, we're going to be hearing from Mitzi Belliveau, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. Doesn't matter? Okay. She's going to be speaking on her own experiences and be speaking on behalf of Craig's family. So Mitzi is a master Reiki and angelic healer. She's a shaman, a writer, and runs her own business as a psychic and healer. She's also an advanced chakra healer, a member of the Lake Harriet spiritual community. She does meditation classes and is in training to become a MUFON field investigator. So please help me welcome Mitzi.
Wow, I wasn't expecting to be the first one to speak.
Oh, they didn't show you?
No. I guess I'll come up with the Tim Lang, Craig's brother, sent me something, which I also tagged several people here. He wanted to let everybody know from MUFON here that he said he'd be watching via the video stream. He wasn't able to make it here. He's going to be here next week, kind of taking the final effects of Craig's. And he wanted to thank everybody from MUFON, and he just wanted you guys to know that Craig let him know that the colleagues and friends here over the years that Craig did talk about you guys and through his family, and that he said he could never be replaced. Craig could never be replaced, and right now Tim feels that there's a UFO hole in his heart, and it's going to be hard to fill. So that's the message from Tim Lang, Craig's brother. And for those of you who don't know who I am, I was Craig Lang's fiance for a total of 8 days before he passed away. So it kind of hit me very hard. And I guess I'm going to kind of swing in a different side of it, that I want to thank everybody in MUFON for being Craig's friends. And everything that everybody talks about is true. Craig was kind of the leader, the champion, and very much a champion of women. He had a lot of women friends and empowered them. He saw that there was a need in empowering women. And this is actually the 6th celebration of life that I've gone to for Craig Lang. I've never seen anybody, not a king, not a queen, not a president, that's had so many celebrations of life. And I believe that's because he was so famous and so loving and so kind and touched so many people's lives. The one thing that Craig impressed upon me was MUFON. No matter what he did, whatever event or association he was involved with, he always brought up MUFON. You guys were his brothers and his sisters, his comrades, and I guess I want to, like I said, look at the point that I want to thank all of you for supporting him and now for celebrating his life and for the other things that you've given him, and thank you for supporting me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. Now, like I said, we have had some people email in their thoughts on Craig, so I'm going to read some of those now. I've got actually 4 of them. So, the first one is from Jeanne Harzan. Jeanne Harzan is the executive director of MUFON, so he's like the top dog, and we really wanted to have him here on Skype or at least have his video come in, but we weren't able to make that happen. But he was able to send in this remembrance. So, Jeanne writes, "It is with great sadness that I learned of Craig's passing only moments after it happened a few short weeks ago. I was in complete shock, as I am sure most of you are. I had just seen Craig the day before walking around the International UFO Congress in Phoenix, Arizona, very much alive and well. He complained of a cold, but he looked none the worse for wear and in good health otherwise. So to find out 24 hours later that he had passed away was a complete and utter shock to me. Craig has had a long and illustrious career with MUFON as a volunteer. Craig joined MUFON in the mid-1990s and quickly became a MUFON field investigator in July of 1996. Since then, he's been actively involved in Minnesota MUFON, working his way up to state director for several years, prior to Tom Maher taking over the state director role, and Craig became the assistant state director. Craig's passion has always been CE4, that's MUFON speak for Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, research and working with experiencers who've had encounters with otherworldly beings. This passion led him to become part of the MUFON Experiencer Research Team under the direction of Kathleen Martin and George Medich, something he was intimately involved with up until the day he died. What most of us probably don't know is that Craig was also a technologist and loved programming computers and playing with computer code. In fact, when I ran into him at UFO Congress last year in Hewlett, Wyoming, he shared his passion for not only CE4 work, but also for computer programming with me. It was this conversation that led to Craig joining the CMS programming team and his helping to put a kinder, gentler face on CMS for witnesses reporting cases to us. His handiwork also includes a way to capture abduction and entity cases in CMS. And CMS is MUFON speak for Case Management System. That's how people submit their UFO reports to us. This code is now being implemented and will be released for beta test in just a few short weeks. I know you will see Craig's handiwork very soon, and I hope you like it. Craig was a kind and gentle soul with his own special laugh. He was a deep thinker, but still enjoyed being with people and learning new things. He was a regular fixture at every MUFON symposium I've ever attended, and always made sure that he made the rounds to meet and greet as many people as possible. In short, Craig was a model MUFON member, field investigator, state director, and experiencer research team member. His time, energy, and commitment to mission will surely be missed, but not as much as his friendship and love for the people of MUFON, which many of us still feel to this day. Goodbye, my friend. May your journey give you the answers you sought in this life. And may your good works live on to help those of us still living make sense of all that we know is going on around us. Peace be with you always. Yep, that is from Jeanne Harzan, Executive Director. I was going to do a quick check of my notes. So my next comments are from Kathleen Martin. Kathleen Martin is a leading UFO researcher, author, and lecturer. She's also an expert on the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experiencer case and MUFON Director of Experiencer Research. Here's what she had to say about Craig. I worked closely with Craig Lang for several years. We worked together on MUFON's 3-member vetting team for hypnotherapists before the Experiencer Research team grew and expanded to its current 20-member size. At one time, he was the ERT's assistant director. Craig always had a smile and a good sense of humor. He was a good person who maintained professionalism in his MUFON responsibilities and brought a vast amount of knowledge to the table. Most recently, Craig worked closely with the ERT assistant director, Dr. George Medich, and I to upgrade and update MUFON's CMS. We worked together on the development of a new format for the reporting alien abduction contact cases that separated it from UFO sighting reports. This new process was designed to improve the investigation of MUFON's abduction reports and to offer abductees complete confidentiality through the ERT, as well as an avenue to support services. They were also entitled to follow more than one path, meaning that they could request a CMS investigation of their events and speak confidentially to an ERT member. Craig was dedicated to MUFON and to his work on the ERT. He also maintained our list of vetted hypnotherapists and psychotherapists for referral purposes. Craig was a certified hypnotherapist with the National Guild of Hypnotists and the owner of Explore with Hypnosis. He had published articles in the MUFON UFO Journal, the QFOS International UFO Reporter, The Edge, and many other publications. He was the author of 2 books on UFOs, The Cosmic Bridge, Close Encounters and Human Destiny, and The Other Side of the Sky, The Cosmic Bridge Companion. His books explored the enigma of UFOs, science, and the paranormal. What is our relationship with our visitors from out there? How might that relationship be evolving over time? His other interests were astronomy, parapsychology, creative writing, spirituality, meditation, plus various outdoor sports. Craig will be missed, not only for his contributions to MUFON, but also because he was a wonderful person. Best wishes, Kathleen Martin, MUFON ERT Director. And we received some comments from Sherry Wild. Sherry was a speaker who came and visited us a while back. I believe she's from Wisconsin, but don't hold me on that unless I see heads nodding. But Sherry Wild writes, I was approached by Craig after lecturing at a UFO conference. I believe it was the Ozark Mountain Conference. He invited me to speak to his Minnesota MUFON group, which I accepted. I got to know Craig a bit, and when I would run into him from time to time at different conferences and when I spoke to his group. I remember him as a very sweet, kind, and gentle man who was passionate about learning the truth about the UFO enigma. I recall a discussion we had about religion and how those beliefs were impacted by what we were learning from the ET contact. Like many of us, he yearned for a deeper understanding of humanity's origins and where we fit into the bigger picture. Craig's presence in the UFO community will be missed. Sherry Wild. And I have one last set of comments from Jessica Hansen, who was a very close friend of his, who had attended many meetings here, who had actually gotten up and spoken a number of times too. I know a lot of people here know Jessica. And she writes, we cannot unsee what we saw. We cannot unknow what we know. We cannot unfeel what we felt. You always said to me, you're the bravest person I know. When we traveled, I watched as you became that little boy again, curious and wide-eyed. I watched as you read everything, took photos, took time to listen. I watched as you played with spectrum photography for hours during the storm. There must be 100 photos of that light bulb. You always said you were a researcher, explorer, teacher, and healer, among other things. Now you are the brave one, exploring the other side of a great mystery. And I am the one watching for signs from the beyond. Now I am becoming the researcher, explorer, teacher, and healer. The portal only opens one way, but you would stay even if you could open it. I could share hours of stories about you, but now is not the time. Now is the time to continue the work we started, the work you trained me to do, the work all of us need to do. Say you'll remember me wearing that dress, staring at the sunset. Say you'll remember me, even if it's only in your wildest dreams. Taylor Swift song, Wildest Dreams. We cannot unfeel what we felt. We cannot unknow what we know. We cannot unsee what we saw. Jessica Hansen. And now, since I've given everyone else's thoughts, I have a few thoughts of my own, if you would be so kind to indulge me. Craig Lang has been synonymous with Minnesota MUFON for as long as I can remember. I started attending Minnesota MUFON meetings about 15 years ago. And when I think back on my time and my experiences in Minnesota MUFON, there are a few names that stand out to me. These names and people are, to me, synonymous with Minnesota MUFON, and they embody the principles, values, and integrity that Minnesota MUFON espouses. Some of the names you may know, some you may not. People such as Lorna Hunter, Bill McNeff. And I would be remiss if I did not include Craig Lang in that group of people. There was never a time that I recall when Craig was not a part of Minnesota MUFON. He may have missed a meeting here and there, but I could never think of Minnesota MUFON without thinking of Craig Lang. And Craig had many titles during his time with Minnesota MUFON, both official titles and non-official titles. Field investigator, state director, assistant state director, instructor, experienced researcher team, hypnotherapist, confidant, colleague, mentor, and friend. One thing that I've noticed since Craig's passing is when I stop and reflect on him, more often than not, I find myself smiling and chuckling. I think that one thing that Craig will be remembered for is his distinctive laugh. We've already heard a couple people mention his laugh already. He had a very distinctive laugh, and I will never forget that. And to Craig, it was never a bad time for a laugh or two, even if the laugh was at his own expense. He was always open to that. And many of you know now that Craig was a hypnotherapist, but what you may not know is he didn't get into hypnotherapy until after he'd become a MUFON field investigator. It was MUFON that got him to want to go in that direction. He wanted to know more. He wanted the answers. He wanted to dig deeper. He wanted to help his witnesses get to the answers. And he also wanted to get closer to the truth himself. And Craig was a field investigator, but in many ways, he truly embodied what it really meant to be a field investigator. And when I say that, I mean, he was working 24/7 field investigating, whether it looked like it or not. He took that role very seriously. There was never a bad time for him to look under the rock or to search for more answers. He always wanted to know. And it was through MUFON that he became known as the UFO hypnotist guy. And because there were not a lot of hypnotherapists in MUFON at the time. And he kind of became known nationally because of his hypnotherapy work that he did with MUFON. And he was kind of fond of that title, the hypnotist, the UFO guy, got a kick out of that. He kind of liked what came along with it too. Even when the phone would ring at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And it did many times, ring at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And he'd pick up the phone, and on the other end, many times it'd be, "Hey, are you that UFO guy? I got these little green men that were out here dancing with..." And he would calmly roll over, look at the clock, and go, "Oh, bar closed. Yeah, they're right on time." So, and he'd gotten those phone calls many times. And he had a special place in his heart for those people. He didn't hold that kind of animosity against people. He got it. He knew what he believed, but he also got where they were coming from. He held a spot for them, and he had a love for them. The other calls that he would get at 2 in the morning were also very important to him, too, because they were the calls where people on the other end would say, "I hate to be calling you at this hour, and I really didn't know where else to turn. You're probably going to think I'm crazy, but..." And he'd gotten several of those calls, too. And he would tell me when he'd get that call at 3 in the morning, "You're probably going to think I'm crazy, but..." He knew it was time to get up, because he said that call is going to take a good 2 or 3 hours. It was time for him to go to work. Time for him to go to work. It was time for him to be of service. I think that's how he viewed his role as a hypnotherapist and a field investigator. He was called to be of service. And for him, it was never a bad time to serve. And as I've heard, heard in the other testimonials, Craig was no stranger to the conferences. He loved going to the conferences. He'd attend many of them: the MUFON Conference, the International UFO Congress, Paula Harris' Star Works USA, the UFO Rendezvous, the Ozark Mountain Conference, many others. There was always work and research to be done. He loved getting out, seeing, like Paula said, being with the people, talking to the people, getting that firsthand experience. And he was always excited about the conferences. He'd come back from it, and I'd know he'd been to one. And I'd always ask him, "So, how was the conference?" He'd go, "Oh, yeah, it was great, it was great. "Oh, yeah? Okay, well, how much of the conference did you see?" He'd be like, "What?" I'd say, "How much of the conference did you actually attend, Craig?" He's like, oh, yeah, well, I saw some of it. Exactly how much is some of it, Craig? He said, "Well, I saw the first day, or I saw the first day and a half, or I saw the first speaker, or I caught the very end. You're on hold." So, and that might sound crazy, but he'd look at me and go, "It's okay. I bought the DVDs. I'll watch them later. And you might hear that, and you might go, "What is you pay $500, $600, $700 just to go to a conference? You pay $300, $400, $500 for airfare. You pay $300 or $400 for the hotel, miss the entire conference, and then pay another $100, $150, $200 for the speakers so you can watch them later when you get home." And you've got to think that sounds absolutely crazy. But he'd do that on multiple occasions. And you might be wondering, why would someone do something like that? And I can tell you exactly why, because I know Craig, and I know exactly, and he didn't have to, I knew before I asked what it was all about. And he would tell me. At some point during the conference, he was talking to someone, either during a break or at dinner, or even at the bar at the end of the day, because that was one of his favorite things too. He'd always say after these meetings here, he'd go, "Meet us up at the bar, where the real UFO research happens." That was one of his favorite things. So someone would pull him aside, and they'd say, "I'd really like to talk to you. I got something I got to get off my chest. I don't really know who I can talk to. You're probably going to think I'm crazy, but..." And so at that point, when he hears that line, "You're probably going to think I'm crazy, but..." The conference agenda didn't matter, his agenda didn't matter, all those other agendas, they got pushed aside. They didn't matter anymore. There was one agenda that was important. That person standing right in front of him. That person that needed an ear to speak to. That person that needed someone to listen. The person that needed someone to believe their story. The person that needed someone to care. The person that wasn't going to judge them for their story. The person that needed comfort. At that point, that's all that mattered to Craig. That person standing in front of him. He was a man of service and love. He could miss the rest of the conference. He got the DVDs. He'll catch up on it. Number one thing was that person that needed him. Always. At a conference, 2 or 3 in the morning, didn't matter. They needed him. They had the story. That was the most important thing. He brought that to MUFON. He brought it to his witnesses. Service and love. I had the opportunity to investigate a case with Craig and watch him interview people live. And he really did have passion and compassion for the people that were with him. The people that were trying to understand this experience that they were going through. He went with it. He went through it with them. As a field investigator and as a human, he brought a lot of love to what he did and shared it with those who shared with him. And that's the thing too. When I say he embodies a field investigator, for those of you that don't know, MUFON gets sightings from our case management system. They get assigned to field investigators and we investigate. It didn't matter if it was a MUFON case or not. If you had a story you wanted to tell, Craig was never too far from a pen and paper to take down your story. And I'd see him do it numerous times. It didn't matter if it was a MUFON case. He didn't care. That wasn't important. Your story, what you had to say, what you had to share, that was what was important to him. Everything got put aside because what you had to say meant that much. I was also fortunate enough to have a more personal relationship with him. We were in business organizations together, and on more than one occasion, I'd bring a subject or topic to him, and I'd tell him all about the situation, kind of factually, and then say, here's my perspective on it. And sometimes it was MUFON related, sometimes it was not. Give him my perspective and say, what's your take on it? He'd give me his feedback. It was a really good way to kind of check my compass, make sure it was still pointing north. He was very good to do that with. He was always open to hear it, whether it was UFO related or not. And he was a good reality check for me. And I think I returned the favor to him at least once or twice. I know a number of years ago, he had considered expanding his hypnotherapy business. He was thinking about becoming a stage hypnotist too. Going to corporate parties and events and doing the, you think you're an elephant, blah, 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 doing all that stuff. So we talked about that. We talked about the pluses and minuses, what it would look like for him doing that professionally. How would it impact his standing with the National Guild of Hypnotists, his reputation? How would it affect MUFON and his reputation there? So we had some good conversations. So I like to think I returned that favor to him. I like to think I was able to support him as much as he supported me. So in closing, I guess I would say MUFON, with Craig's passing, MUFON will not be the same. In Minnesota, MUFON will definitely not be the same. I won't be the same. But what I can say is, we are all better for having known Craig and his contributions to us. So thank you. And I know I've talked about him already, and so I'm going to ask him to come up and share his comments on Craig Lang. He's our chief investigator, and he is our director of communications. Please welcome Mr. Bill McNeff.
I met Craig in the mid-1990s at a symposium at the Science Museum of Minnesota called The Science and Politics of UFOs. At that time, I was state director for Minnesota, MUFON, so I invited Craig to attend our next monthly meeting, which he did. It was almost his last. He was taken aback when one of the attendees pointed to a corner of the room and told us there was an alien standing there. This alien was invisible to most of us. But Craig, who was a very open-minded person, continued to attend our meetings and soon understood that MUFON is dealing with a very real phenomenon. What the nature of that phenomenon is, Craig never reached a conclusion, except that it was worth investigating hours and hours of his time and effort, gathering data on this great mystery. Craig's ability to withhold judgment and wait for more information was unusual and showed great strength of mind. I came to believe that he had great empathy for his fellow human beings and that I could confidently rely on his ethics, effort, and judgment in things scientific and ufological. When Craig realized that hypnotic regression was a way to open up suppressed memories of close encounters, he promptly learned how to do it and obtained certification by the National Guild of Hypnotists. I personally verified his expertise in this when I asked him to regress me to try to obtain more information about the 2 UFO sightings I have had and the sightings that my 2 sisters and brother had. One piece of information I wanted was what year this had happened. I had not kept notes at the time. During regression, he asked me, "How old are you?" I was surprised to hear myself answer, "I'm 18. This established that my first sighting and the sightings by my sisters and brother both happened in the summer of 1951. Later, as I thought this over, I realized that this was indeed the correct year based on other events in that time frame. Craig was a true professional and an expert in regression as well as many other areas of science and knowledge in general. To us, his passing was untimely and a great loss. I take comfort in believing that Craig is now further along in his quest for knowledge and personal fulfillment, that he now knows a lot of answers and is on his way to knowing even more and fulfilling his ultimate destiny. Thank you.
Okay, we've got actually one more speaker I'd like to introduce. He's a regular here. He's on our board of directors. Please welcome Mr. Mike Harris.
Heard a lot of really good talk today, so you're going to think I'm repeating everything on purpose, but I planned this at a time. Craig was really good at a lot of things that he did. And he was one of these people that, unless you knew him really well, he was so humble and so down to earth, you didn't realize how smart he was. He was an excellent hypnotherapist. In terms of film investigations, he knew stuff that I can't even talk about right now because I don't even know how to pronounce it. Any question you had about anything, you always had the answer. One of the very few people here that I can say that about. When I heard about Craig's passing, past 2 months have been for me like I've lost a family member. When I heard about Craig 2 months ago, I called a mutual friend of ours that had experiences. And this person told me that Craig had literally saved his life by working with him and doing hypnosis on this. Craig and I, he helped me with a couple phone investigations when I started doing investigations. He helped me do my first investigation that was in person. And we went out to a man's house, and the man said that he had seen something in the sky and had seen the star Sirius in that part of the sky. And Craig says, well, that time of year, Sirius is not in that part of the sky. It's in a different part of the sky at a different time of year, and the star that he saw was Vega. I mean, Craig knew stuff that was just uncanny. We went on a sky watch once. There was a star by the moon. He knew what planet that was. There was another star in the sky, and he knew how many light years it was from the Earth. I mean, just the things that he knew was just He was always, like people said, very non-judgmental, happy to help. If I needed help with investigation or a form, he always went out of his way to meet me somewhere at his office. He'd always accommodate your schedule. And even if you were, at the dinner and you wanted to talk and something were bothering you, he would pull you aside and he would listen. He didn't have a PhD in psychology. He didn't have an MD as a psychiatrist, but people said things about him that I have not heard about people that went to school for years and years and had degrees. He was an amazing person, and as we said, we will not be the same without him.
Thank you all. So I just want to make sure, did I miss anyone? Anyone who's expecting to speak about Craig that got missed? I don't want to cut anyone out that was expecting to speak on Craig. Okay, cool. So that does it for our memorial. So I want to thank you all for the memorial. We've still got the rest of the meeting, so we're not ending the meeting. I just want to kind of, for the video guys, close out the memorial. So that is our memorial for Craig Lang. Like I said, field investigator, brother, friend, and mentor. Will not be soon forgotten, but will be definitely missed. So. And I want to throw in, Mitzi had mentioned that she's been to a few of these things for Craig already. I was attended the one at the Healer Circle, and one of the psychics got up, and I don't know if she's a psychic or a healer or whatever, but she said she's been in contact with Craig on the other side, and just because you go to the other side, you don't get all the answers. Apparently, he's still working with another entity to find out the answers, so apparently the journey's not over. So he's still busy at work, but at least we've got this to immortalize him. So I want to thank you all for being here for that. So. Craig Lang, rest in peace.